World history has been at the core of the world we know today. Most governments today, including ours, are based on previous civilizations that came up with those ideologies. In this video, I will address the many legacies of the ancient civilization of Greece, as well as the belief systems known as Buddhism and Confucianism. Starting off with ancient Greece, located in the middle of mountainous terrain. Thus, it consisted of many different city-states that had different leaders and political systems. I'll start off with Athens, the foundation of democracy. Athens was the first documented direct democracy around the 5th century BCE. A direct democracy is a government in which each citizen can vote on important decisions. Although there is some unfairness in the system, such as the fact that citizens could only be free men who had completed military service, this idea of a direct democracy still affects us today. This is because direct democracy is present in the form of ballots, with some states and cities even giving citizens the right to directly create, change, or repeal laws. Though we are mostly a representative democracy, these examples show that direct democracy is still very much alive and well. Because of Athens, our nation is the democracy that we live in today. The second important ideology of ancient Greece is actually a set of many ideas that come from its philosophers. The most famous philosophers of that time, perhaps even of all time, were Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, though they are all connected to each other, as Socrates taught Plato and Plato taught Aristotle. These three philosophers all came up with their own ideas on different aspects of society. Socrates brought along the concept of the Socratic method in human nature. We use the Socratic method to understand more complex and complicated problems, and human nature states that everyone can be good, and it is used in many beliefs and religious systems today. Socrates' student, Plato, believed that everyone in a society needs to work to help the community as a whole. This clearly affects us today because many neighborhoods across the world have a strong sense of community and are more inclusive of everyone. Also, his view on education shows us how education is important to our everyday lives. Finally, with Aristotle, the concept of observation came about. Without it, scientists wouldn't be able to conduct any experiments at all. The second ideology of Aristotle was that he created and expanded on the idea of natural philosophy in the various categories of botany, zoology, chemistry, and astrology. So we can see that Greek philosophers played a huge role in our understanding of life as we know it. Now let's move on to the legacies of belief systems, starting with Buddhism. This spiritual religion and tradition, founded by Siddhartha Gautama in South Asia in the 6th century BCE, believes in the cycle of reincarnation and rebirth, similar to Hinduism. In Buddhism, the ultimate goal is to achieve enlightenment and reach Nibbana, also termed as nirvana. It involves the understanding and following of Dharma, which in Buddhism is the way the world works in the Buddha's teachings. I'll begin with the Buddha's teachings on suffering. According to Buddhism, life is full of suffering. This is because it is full of desires we want. The Buddha taught that human suffering originates from three things: wanting what we like but don't have, wanting to keep what we like and already have, and not wanting what we dislike but have. Overall, none of these desires will ever be completely satisfied. Every time we get something, we become greedier and want more of it, and that craving will never be fulfilled. However, once one reaches Nibbana, ultimate bliss will be achieved, and no more suffering will be experienced. Reaching Nibbana is achieved when one accepts this concept of suffering, and this leads to the ability to resist the temptation of greediness and being satisfied with what you already have. Although it is difficult to live our lives following this advice, we actually apply this many times to our daily lives. For example, when we donate to charity, we are not attached to the materialistic item that is in this case money. Another example lies within dinner. When you're eating at the dinner table with your family, you take your portion of the food instead of the entire plate. You do this because you want the rest of your family to eat enough as well. By doing this, you're incorporating the Buddhist idea of avoiding the temptation of greediness. As you can see, although we may not know it, we are actually applying these principles of Buddhism to varying aspects of our lives every single day. The next ideology that Buddhism introduced to the world was the Eightfold Path. It is used as a guiding pathway to describe how life could be lived. The Eightfold Path provides a way in which one can reach Nibbana. It consists of the right view, intention, speech, conduct, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and samadhi, which means concentration. This is definitely used in our daily lives. For example, at school, there are rules that prohibit profanity and vulgarity. This aligns with the right speech because the rule is meant to ensure that students will use proper language. In addition, every time we say anything in a formal manner, either towards our teachers, our parents, or older family members, right speech is guiding us to do so. Right action is something that we see almost all the time. These includes things like abstaining from killing, stealing, lying, and causing any kind of harm. Of course, we all try to follow these rules every day, as they are the foundation of justice and peace in our society. Without them, our society would just be a plain mess, as no one would be ethically moral in their intents. With all of this in mind, it makes sense why Buddhism is still an incredibly relevant religion to this day. Finally, the last example of a belief system that has a massive legacy is the philosophy of Confucianism. Founded by the philosopher Confucius, this belief system focused on the importance of family over loyalty to the state, or in our case, the country. Confucianism is more about daily life and human interactions rather than authorities. It defines five major relationships in society. Subject respects ruler, wife respects husband, son respects father, younger brother respects elder brother, and friend respects friend. Although the subject and ruler instance is irrelevant in our current society, all the other relationships still clearly apply to us. Many families today incorporate this chain of respect into daily life. This way, order in the family can be maintained. This occurs especially in Asian families as Confucianism originated in China and thus was easily spread throughout the continent after gaining popularity. Many Asian families today are influenced a lot by this in daily life. For example, children are expected to always respect and listen to their parents and elders, and this idea, called filial piety, is enforced to a high degree. However, in the big picture, all families across the world incorporate these concepts to some degree, no matter where they're from. Finally, the second legacy of Confucianism is human behavior, which basically means that every person and living thing deserves respect, kindness, and care. Back in ancient China, one of the primary applications was to the ruler, since Confucianism started in the middle of the Warring States period. It showed that the ruler should treat his subjects with respect, instead of enforcing harsh punishments on them. However, despite the fact that we don't live with a ruler in charge, we still have these principles in our daily lives. For example, we've all heard of the golden rule many times throughout our lives. Treat others the way you want to be treated. This clearly defines the idea of human behavior since it highlights the importance of respect and kindness towards others. Another example that goes along with this idea is compassion towards others. Since we were children, we were taught both in school and at home that we should help others in times of need. One example of this might be with your friends. Let's say that your friend needs help with a homework assignment. By spending time to help your friend understand this assignment, you are displaying the idea of human behavior from Confucius. Essentially, anytime we use compassion and kindness in our lives, we apply the ideology of human behavior from Confucianism. As you can see, Confucianism is a belief system that applies to our daily lives much more than we would expect. To summarize, all of the ancient civilizations and belief systems that I have discussed in this video left behind massive impacts and legacies. The Greek civilization left behind the ideas of democracy and its philosophers who all contributed to our understanding of daily life with aspects like education, society, and human nature. The Buddhism religion left behind the reasons why we suffer during our lives and how to overcome it. It also created a guiding pathway for us to have a better lifestyle and well-being. The Confucianism belief system left behind the idea of filial piety and the importance of family over government loyalty. In addition to this, it outlined key ideas of human behavior that tell us how to interact with others in compassionate manners. All of these ancient civilizations and belief systems are essential, as they have left a lasting impact for modern society as well as future generations to come.